Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are diving right in to completely deconstruct one of the world's absolute most famous, most captivating masterpieces. We're talking about a painting that has literally inspired novels, movies, and honestly, centuries of endless speculation. But as you'll see, modern science has recently handed us a completely new lens to view it through. It's going to be a wild ride. So, prepare to have everything you thought you knew about this 1665 artwork completely shattered. Seriously, because first off, she's actually not a formal portrait. Her background, it wasn't originally black. And that iconic pearl hanging from her ear, well, it might not actually be a pearl at all. If you ever get the chance to finally see this painting in person at the Mauritshuis in The Hague, the very first thing that hits you is its surprisingly small scale. I mean, it measures just 44.5 by 39 centimeters, or 17.52 by 15.35 inches. To put that into perspective, that is not much bigger than a standard piece of printer paper. And notice what isn't there. There's no furniture, there are no windows. Absolutely no negative props. Johannes Vermeer deliberately stripped away every single thing that could distract us, leaving only the suspended, incredibly intimate moment in time, where she just turns to meet your gaze. Okay, let's dive into this. For centuries, right? People have just obsessed over finding out exactly who this girl was. Was she Vermeer's daughter, Maria? Was she a maid? Well, science and art history tell us we are actually asking the wrong question entirely. This painting represents a critical genre shift. It moves away from a traditional portrait, which, was commissioned to preserve a very specific person's identity and status. And instead it falls into a category called a tronie. Now a tronie, which is a super popular term, in 16th and 17th century Dutch and Flemish art, was basically meant to be a study. So the really crucial point here is that while Vermeer might have used a live model to get the lighting absolutely perfect, his ultimate goal was just to showcase his sheer technical brilliance. He wasn't trying to paint a biographical record, and actually that is exactly why he dressed her in that exotic, non-traditional headscarf. It completely removed her from everyday 17th century Dutch reality. To bring this character to life, Vermeer plays this absolutely brilliant psychological trick on us. Check out how her body is turning away, but her head is snapping right back towards us. Her lips are slightly parted, kind of indicating a breath she just took, or a word she's right about to speak. And Vermeer uses these incredibly smooth, light transitions. No hard lines at all, which essentially pulls our gaze into this endless loop. We go from her eyes, down to her lips, over to the earring, and right back up again. It makes the whole thing feel like this unfinished moment that you, the viewer, literally just interrupted. This brilliance, though, it builds from the micro details of her expression, all the way out to a macro, global scale. Take this raw lapis lazuli stone, for example. This is the exact raw material that powers that vibrant, absolutely unforgettable blue of the girl's headscarf. That specific color is called natural ultramarine, which literally translates to beyond the sea. And its journey to Vermeer's palette, it's just staggering. First, it had to be mined high up, in the mountains of present-day Afghanistan. Then it was transported all the way across the ancient Silk Road and various sea routes, just to reach 17th century Europe. And after all that, the rock had to go through this grueling, super time-consuming purification process just to extract the pure blue pigment. Because of this massive global journey, ultramarine was incredibly rare. In fact, it was actually more expensive than gold. Crazy, right? And this brilliantly illustrates just how lavishly Vermeer used this wildly costly pigment. He didn't just slap it on the prominent blue headscarf. Nope, Microscopic cross-sections reveal that he actually hid ultramarine right inside the shadows of her yellow jacket. He used it to subtly cool down those shadow tones and beautifully harmonize the clothing with the headscarf. So it wasn't just about showing off his wealth or his materials. It was a completely masterful tool for organizing light. But here is the thing. That blue is changing. 3D digital microscopy has revealed something truly fascinating happening right beneath the surface. Scientists have actually found new chemical compounds with super complex names like palmyrite and wetellite, forming in the deeper blue areas just above her ear. Basically, what this all means is that the gorgeous colors we are marveling at today, they aren't purely Vermeer's 1665 choices anymore. They are partly the result of over 3 centuries of ongoing chemical reactions happening right there on the canvas. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the centerpiece itself, the pearl. Or I guess I should say the illusion of a pearl. For starters, it's way too large to be a real natural pearl. And if you look really closely, there isn't even a visible hook connecting it to her ear. When you actually break it down, it's nothing more than a thin gray wash painted over the dark shadow of her neck, topped off with a thick stroke of lead white for the highlight, and a soft white reflection bouncing up from her collar down below. That's it. Our brains just magically fill in the rest of the sphere. It is an absolute masterpiece of minimalist optical illusion, all made from just a few detached strokes of paint. So we've got an illusionistic pearl, and we've got a globally sourced headscarf. But what about that background? I really want you to ask yourself, why on earth would Vermeer paint a pure, abstract black void behind such an incredibly lifelike figure? Well, the answer is he didn't. Scientific scans revealed there was actually originally a folded green curtain hanging right behind her. If we break down the paint layers, we see that Vermeer painted a black base, and then he layered a green color glaze over it, which was made from a mix of yellow weld dye and indigo, which, by the way, is yet another global trade ingredient. But over 300 years, that top layer of indigo severely degraded from being exposed to light. So the green curtain vanished entirely, leaving us with the deep, abstract black void that we see today. We only know all of this incredible information thanks to the 2018 Girl in the Spotlight project. This amazing international research team literally set up shop inside a glass studio, right at the Mauritshuis. They used these wildly high-tech tools. We're talking macro X-ray fluorescence scans and infrared imaging to thoroughly map the painting. And the best part? They did it all without physically altering a single drop of paint on the canvas. This high-tech scanning also completely busted a massive myth about how Vermeer actually worked. You know, we tend to think of him as this slow, meticulous perfectionist who painted perfectly from the very first brushstroke. But the scans reveal his true 4-step process, and it's quite different. He actually started with broad, rapid, almost aggressive sketching in brown and black. Then he worked back to front. He painted the background and the face first, and then layered on the yellow jacket, the collar, the headscarf, and finally added that ear ornament on top. The quiet stillness of the painting, that's just the final result. It is definitely not how it began. So the final step in his very dynamic process was adding his signature, Vermeer, right up in the top left corner. But because the background has darkened so much over the centuries, this signature is now barely visible to the naked eye. It really perfectly highlights the stark contrast between what modern science can uncover and what our own human eyes actually perceive when we're standing in the gallery today. And hey, speaking of things the naked eye can no longer see, those microscopic scans revealed another completely shocking detail. Tiny, delicate eyelashes painted right around her eyes. I mean, today, she looks like she's just floating in this abstract, timeless space. But originally, she had a green curtain behind her, and eyelashes framing her gaze. The painting was once so much more physically grounded, long before time kind of abstracted the whole thing. Now, we absolutely can't talk about Vermeer's incredible realism without at least touching on the famous camera obscura debate. If you don't know, a camera obscura was an old optical device that basically projected an image onto a surface. And it's true, the painting's soft focus, its shallow depth of field, and those enlarged, almost halo-like highlights on her face, they do closely mimic optical projections. But here's the real truth. While he very likely used one to observe light effects, there is absolutely zero proof that Vermeer directly traced anything. The camera didn't make the painting, folks. Vermeer's brilliant conscious choices did. Which brings us to a really profound question I want to lead you with today, knowing that her pearl is basically an optical illusion, that her background curtain has totally faded to black, and that her blue headscarf is literally chemically transforming as we speak. Are we really just looking at Vermeer's 1665 masterpiece anymore? Or are we actually looking at a painting that's been co-authored by 3 centuries of time? It's an amazing testament to the fact that art isn't static. The painting's later history is just as remarkable. In 1881, it appeared at an auction in The Hague, darkened and in poor condition. Arnoldus Andries de Tum bought it for 2 guilders plus a 30-cent commission. After his death in 1902, he bequeathed it and 11 other paintings to the Mauritshuis, where it entered the museum collection in 1903. A nearly forgotten little painting had begun its second life as a public masterpiece. It lives, it ages, and, thanks to modern science, it just keeps on revealing its secrets. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.